there.
Invisible Ink by Clay Entertainment is an amazing game, and just a real standout for roguelike and stealth game design. The game itself is built on turn-based tactical stealth, which in of itself is worthy of study, but how the developers add in a very extensive persistent layer, as well as a refined core gameplay loop, are just icings on the cake. But when it comes to the game, the basic story is that this is the far future, and it's of course cyberpunk if the opening scene didn't let you in, and you are part of Invisible Ink, a covert operation or covert ops spy company who has just been attacked by evil corporations. They're after your artificial AI Incognita, and the game itself takes place across 3 days of in-game time as you perform missions in order to gather resources, agents, and more that we'll talk about next in order to prepare for one final assault that will be do or die. Now with that said though, let's get things started with talking about the basics of growing your characters and the gameplay of Invisible Ink. When it comes to Invisible Ink, the game basically gets complicated from the word go. At the start, after you choose your campaign settings, you're going to choose from 2 agents as well as a program that you'll take into the field with to aid you in your mission. The agents themselves are all unique characters that come with predefined stats. The stats themselves simply determine how they perform on a mission, and is also used as a prerequisite for items. Each character starts with items which you can also find or buy more over the course of playing the game, and these items are essentially your toolkit for what you'll do, from being able to distract enemies, kill them, open up doors, safes, you name it. That's what they're going to be a part of. Now the more important aspect are augments. This is where the cyberpunk gets into play. The augments themselves provide specific benefits to that character. It could be to generate more movement points if they knock someone down, become harder to see, and can basically synergize with your items to produce some very overpowered combinations if you get that far. Now once you've done that, the game begins proper at the start of a 72-hour period. The rules are as follows. You have 72 hours to gather all the resources you need. The final mission, as well as all missions in the game, are procedurally generated, but are built on several preset conditions. You have the security level, which goes up across each in-game day. This determines the overall threat level that the enemies will put out. The corporation that you're going after will determine what troops you'll find, what bonus dangers, as well as anything specific to that corporation that you'll have to deal with. And then the mission itself will determine what resources or rewards you'll be able to go after, as well as unique mission-specific rooms that will be put in. For instance, if you're going after a captured agent, there will be a jail cell room for you to go through. But as you go on the missions, of course, time is going to fast forward. Now, you don't have to worry about time ticking down when you're on a mission, but the game is designed that once you go on one, you'll see the hours count down. And after each day, things become harder and harder. Now, with that said though, a lot of what makes Invisible Ink so challenging has to do with the stealth or tactical layer. On a mission, you have a singular objective that's once again defined by the mission choice that you chose. The game itself, as we've said, is turn-based, with you controlling up to 4 agents, which you begin with 2, but you can get 2 more hopefully, and then the opponents go. Now the thing about the game being tactical and turn-based for a stealth design is that you as the player are given a lot of information as to how things are going. You're going to be able to see where enemies are going in and out of rooms, what their sightline is, and you're even given the idea of what the security level is, which we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now, on the missions themselves, you're looking for either credits that you'll be able to spend, or your mission objectives, and then most importantly, the actual exit. Because the levels are procedurally generated, you never have an idea as to where everything is unless you start looking. Now, your agents come with some pre-arranged gear from the get-go. They can move, they can crouch to conceal themselves, they can run, which generates, of course, sound, and they can also knock out enemies, including an Overwatch move, if an enemy crosses their path while they are in Overwatch. Now the thing is, while you can knock out guards, they will get up after 2 or 3 turns, which you can also keep them pinned or shock them again to keep them down further. Once a guard knows or thinks that there's someone around, they will begin to start looking erratically around the general area. And the guards themselves are smart enough to look at areas where the doors are open or if they hear any sound. Now your other option comes from Incognita itself. You can switch the Incognita UI at any time, and this allows you to hack various hardware, as well as use any programs you've either gathered or found to mess with the enemies or the environment, such as being able to set up sound traps, hack robots if there are any, and other features. You are limited by energy, and at the start of the game you can choose from one energy restoring method, while the other way is to basically gather it from various objects in the environment. But you will have to make use of Incognita in order to basically make your way around. One other threat you have to deal with are daemons, which are nasty things that can pop up if you hack something, which can permanently affect the rest of the level. And it's another element of the risk and reward as to what you're doing on mission, as well as what elements you're going to mess with Incognita. Now, while you're playing the game, or while you're on a mission, the part of the challenge of Invisible Ink has to do with how the stealth layer is playing out, or is defined. Similar to a game like Thief, or even something like Metal Gear, you are not going to be the dominant force on a map. There is never a point in Invisible Ink where you can safely say, I have cleared this map, it is entirely pacified. And the reason for that has to do with the security level. As time goes on, or if you are caught doing something, the security level will rise. Every time it goes up, the level itself becomes harder. More cameras could activate. It could become harder to hack. Guards could be summoned, or even they may even just spot you automatically. And what this does is twofold. One, it keeps the pace fast in Invisible Ink. You're not going to be spending 40 minutes to an hour on a single mission. It's just going to get too dangerous otherwise. Second is that it forces you to weigh the pros and cons of sticking around. Very rarely will you be able to clear every reward on a single map, especially if you only have 2 agents. And because of that, you need to understand how far you want to go before making your way to the exit, or even finding the exit in the first place. And this creates a very interesting case of tension, especially if things go awry and the enemies spot you. Now, if you are caught, the game comes with some safety net features. You can rewind time up until, or so many times based on the difficulty level, back 1 turn. So if you zigged if you should have zagged, you'll be good. But if you're already stuck in a bad situation, you may not be able to get out of it. Now, once a mission is over, then you're able to add more elements to your agents. The after mission screen allows you to apply credits to your character's stats, again making them better in the field or allowing them to equip better items, and you can also spend your credits on new items along the way. But again, ultimately, the goal of Invisible Ink is to prepare for that final mission. And that takes me to some of my major complaints with the game and how polarizing the feedback loop really is. When it comes to Invisible Ink, my big issue, or the first one that I have, has to do with just how polarizing the feedback loop is. Because the game takes place over only the course of 72 hours of in-game play, it means that you're either going to win and keep winning, or lose and not be able to recover. Having a bad mission in Invisible Ink is just basically cause for restarting the game. One, because it's already short to begin with, and two, is that it's just going to be almost near impossible for you to recoup those losses. And remember, this is a stealth game, so getting caught at any point in a mission can be do or die time. Now, as you play through, because the rewards and the possible levels are procedurally generated, this also has an impact on making the game either easier or harder because of it. If I don't get a lot of good items or elements that synergize, there's not much I can really do on that final mission, or even on some of the day 3 missions when you'll run into cyborg enemies or humans that have armor, which means that you cannot stun them normally. Invisible Ink's balance is built on the game assuming that you are growing in power over the course of the 3 days. And if you're just not having luck, there's not much you can really do to supplement that with your own skill. This is incredibly true on the game's final mission, which is just a non-stop assault of guys as you try to keep one step ahead of them. And I'm not sure how this could be fixed. Again, because the game is so short, it also means that you never really going to get the same game twice. And Clay was smart in terms of knowing, I guess, which levers to pull in terms of making the game different or having the procedural generation at work. The other issue that I have with Invisible Ink is more or less has to do with what to do next. I beat the game one time, I think this was on either normal or hard difficulty, and when that was over, I just didn't feel any reason to keep playing the game. One thing I would love to have seen would be a more of a persistent mode, similar to XCOM, where you're kind of running the agency and going on missions at the same time. And a lot of people were saying the same thing as me, but unfortunately this was just way too out of scope for a game like this. There is an endless mode, but it's just endless missions without any additional persistent layer. But that's really all I have in terms of problems with Invisible Ink. And like I said, this is such a finely tuned experience that Clay really knew what they were doing from beginning to end with it. When it comes to Invisible Ink, this is still an amazing game and holds up well today in terms of both its tactical layer as well as what Clay wanted out of its stealth design. If you're a fan of stealth-based games in general, this is definitely one you don't want to miss out on. The game did get DLC in the form of the contingency plan that adds in more items, agents, and situations. But even though the game doesn't have a ton of variables in terms of procedural generation, because the core gameplay is so finely tuned, it really leads to the game being different on each play. Whatever agents you choose, what items or augments you find, are going to greatly impact the gameplay. And even though the game is still very much primarily focused on skill, so much can go wrong over a mission or mess with you to force you into a plan B or C or even D case. And this is one of those games I would love to see Clay work on with another or get a sequel on, because there's still so much in terms of this universe, and we didn't even discuss the aesthetics of this game that look amazing and the personality Clay brings to their characters. But that's going to do it for this Dissecting Design. This is the first one I'm doing with more of this edited style, so let me know what you think in the comments below. And be sure to check back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. I'm going to try and do one of these more edited versions of Dissecting Designs at least once a month. And the patrons over on patreon.com/Bycer will also get to pick what game I cover for that month. But that's going to do it for this Dissecting Design of Invisible Ink. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time with another discussion about game design. Before we get to the credits, just a quick shout out to the supporters over on patreon.com/GWBycer. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to check back for our regular streaming, most nights at 9:30, 10 EST, and you'll find a schedule linked down below. For a collection of my writings as well as audio casts on design, you'll find that at game-wisdom.com. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at GWBycer. If you're interested in hanging out and talking about game design topics, we have a Discord channel with the basic tier open to everybody, and that is linked down below as well. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, it is at patreon.com/GWBycer. Your support can help to keep things going and growing, and you can earn rewards such as ad-free versions of our talks, votings for our specific Let's Plays and grab bag streams, and more. But that's it for now. Thanks again for watching. I hope you come back for more great discussions on design here and on GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games.